What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to episode 76 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me and supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And today we have about a 22-minute episode. We're going to be taking a brief break from working on our mall, and we're going to be getting some work done today on the primary shuttle bay. And this is going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to fleshing this area out because I think you all will really enjoy this section of the ship and how it turns out. But of course, those of you that haven't, be sure to join my new Discord. I will have a link in the description below today's episode. You can get the new latest updates regarding my YouTube channel, any changes in the if I'm going to be taking a break in episodes, or you'll also be able to share your builds on there as well as vote on upcoming builds that I'm going to be doing. And a whole bunch of other really cool stuff. So if you haven't, please be sure to join my Discord below. And without further ado, we're going to be hopping right into this. And I didn't get a chance to talk about this in yesterday's episode, but we are on a goal to get to 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. And once we hit 1,000, I'm going to be doing a tutorial on the 2016 U.S.S. Enterprise A, because that's one of my highest build requests that I had, and this was something I've promised the community that I was going to do for quite some time now. But once we hit 1,000, that is 100% going to happen. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. But right now you can see that we're kind of shaping out the center section of our shuttle bay. This is ultimately going to become the shuttle bay control room slash uh, cargo transport area slash turbo lift to go up into the bridge and down in the other areas of the ship. Now, right now, I'm still at a point where I'm in denial, and I think that I'll be able to make it work with having the bridge uh, in this area, and then also all the other stuff that I want to do. That's ultimately not going to work. Now, the reasons why I'm still showing this is to keep you guys consistent and being up to date with everything that I'm going to be changing on this area of the ship, because we're already making a couple of modifications. Um, but it's not going to be too bad. Really, it's not. Um, really, what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be making the centerpiece here a little bit wider and building around this room that we already have pre-established. But I can already tell you, spoilers, what we're ultimately going to do, pretty much this extra wall that we're going to be building around, we're actually going to be going back and deleting that and going back to originally what we had, and then we're going to be moving the bridge upward, and then I'm just going to have to rebuild the exterior portion of the bridge. Because really what I wanted to do was my original thought behind it was is that I wanted to kind of have the bridge tucked down into the ship a little bit so I had a little bit more room to build with. But and this is just going to happen to you when you're building. I just didn't foresee um, that I wasn't going to have enough room to do exactly what I wanted to with my shuttle bay. And it just how it kind of turned out that where the way that I built my primary shuttle bay was that with the level that we have now, it intersects directly with the bridge, which ended up being a huge problem because all these things that I wanted to do, if we kept the bridge where we're like where we have it right now, wouldn't be able to do any of that. And the only other option at that point, if we don't do that, is to go back and move the bridge upward a little bit, and then rebuild the exterior of it, which is something that I really don't want to ever. I try to avoid at all costs, but at this point, where we were at, there was really no other choice. And I've talked about this in the past that when I build my ships, um, I try to build out everything that I can exterior wise for first for a reason, and that's because I proportion everything together. Um, and if you don't proportion everything together, your ship can quickly fall apart in its proportions, and the sizing won't match up right. That's why I always start off with the saucer, and I proportion everything off the saucer section. Um, there was a rhythm to my madness, is what I'm getting at here. And what ended up happening is I had no other choice, that I had to go back and I had to rebuild the exterior of the bridge and making it a little bit bigger than what it's supposed to be. And it's really not that big of a deal, because I think when everything is all said and done, even and some of the teasers that I've shown, like recently, where the builds at, I haven't had a single person say that the outside of the bridge is too big. So I'm really not worried about that. But still, it's something that I try to avoid if I can. But again, what we're showing right now, all these extra blocks that we're adding going along our original room here, we are going to be getting rid of this, because this was one of my thoughts on what I had to avoid doing everything that I just discussed that we're going to be doing. And I think that's important to show this stuff, because this is my thought process. This is kind of how I try to approach things, and how maybe fixing it without having to do something so drastic as rebuilding the exterior. It's always a really good idea to brainstorm when you're doing stuff like that, because you never know what you might come across. And in this case, everything that we try ultimately doesn't work. But it's worth trying, and it's worth showing, um, because you never know in the future, doing things like this more often than you would think, you can come up with a solution to it. But we're just kind of pressed for space right here, which kind of sucks, um, with what we currently have. Now, once we move the bridge upward, we're going to have just enough room to do everything that I want to do. The only thing that this section is not going to have, because right where we're at right now, where the bridge is, that's pretty much where the facade for the cargo transport room is going to be. Or not the cargo transport, the cargo turbo lift. Um, so the only thing that I didn't get to do is actually have a facade for the actual turbo lift on multiple decks, because directly below this deck is our mall slash aquarium. Now, also keeping in mind that even as big as my ship is, I've still scaled it down from a full size Galaxy class ship, which is kind of scary when you think about it, because you can start to get a sense of how big this ship actually was. Um, and what I ended up doing, I think I talked about this in the first couple of episodes, is that I built this thing out a little bit smaller than what it should be. But one of my main reasons for doing that was that I wanted to keep my whole ship in render distance. So this way I can look at my ship from almost any angle, and I'm not going out of render. I think the only angle that I look at it where it goes out of render a little bit is when you look at it from the front of you, looking backwards. The pylons that are connecting to the engines, as you zoom away back a little bit, they go out of render. But any other area of the ship, or any other angle, when you look at it, it's all in render, which is fantastic, because that really helped me in getting the size right on every single section of the ship. That's why, like, some of these mega builds I see people do, they're flying over their ship and you can only see part of the saucer section. It's like, how do you know what this thing looks like from tail to nose? How do you know it's all the right shape and size? You have no clue. You can only see that section of it. So this is why I made my ship the size that it is. But in doing so, we had a couple of problems here and there, um, with some of these mega areas that the ship has. Like, and if you don't know what I mean, go on YouTube right now and do a search for U.S.S. Enterprise D Unreal Engine Tour. And this is actually where I got of the majority of my references when I built out this primary shuttle bay. Um, because even the scale of my shuttle bay that we're going to end up with, it's only a fraction of the size that it should be, which is insane, because just how big how massive the ship is. But at the same time, it's pretty cool, because this is the first time that I've able to been actually build some uh, truly massive builds on Minecraft. This is the biggest build that I've ever done, hands down. Before this ship, I think the biggest build that I ever did was the Vengeance. And yeah, no, it was the Vengeance because the Vengeance was bigger than my Enterprise A. But this ship, um, I'm gonna have to one of these days compare the sizes of the two of them. Unfortunately, they're not directly near one another, so I can't look at them side by side. But I might actually take down the measurements of them to get a feel for how much bigger the Enterprise D is than the Vengeance. Um, because I know for a fact that it is bigger. I'm just curious to see how much bigger it is because I feel like I've been working on this thing for so long, so much longer than any other build that I have in the past. But with that being said, too, I'm also detailing the interior on a level on this build that I really did not do on my Vengeance. One of these days, I'll probably end up doing a tour of the Vengeance um, because I have had a couple of people here or there ask if I have an interior for the ship, and I do. Um, and I've also had one or two people ask me to do a tutorial on it, but you'd be surprised. I haven't had as many people as you would think asking me to do a tutorial on the Vengeance. I've had more people ask me to do a tutorial on the U.S.S. Discovery. Now, I've already built the Discovery, and this is something I've talked about too. If I end up revisiting the Discovery, I think what I'm ultimately going to do is build the Discovery A from the later seasons of Star Trek Discovery. Because actually, I don't know why I kind of like that ship a little bit. Even though the engines, the way that they're floating there, they're kind of ridiculous, and they don't technically have warp drive in that period because of the whole thing with the dilithium. But don't even get me started on that. The ship looks cool, and that's kind of just where I want to stay with it on that point. So if and when I do revisit Discovery, that's probably what the build's going to be. But talking a little bit about what's going to be coming up directly after the Enterprise D, and before we get to 1,000 subscribers with the Enterprise A, the 2016 Enterprise A, I think at this point it's pretty much a solid fact that Voyager is going to be the next build after the Enterprise D, which will be actually really cool because Voyager is only a fraction of the size of the Enterprise D. So it's not going to take a long time to build this thing out. This is something that we'll probably do in a couple of maybe 20, 30, 40 episodes. I think when I did the Cerritos, I think that only ended up being like 42 episodes or something like that. Voyager might end up being along those lines, maybe a few more, a few less, give or take. I don't want to throw a number on there until I actually build the thing, but it's going to be a relatively small ship, and that'll be cool because I'm looking forward to building Voyager. I always really enjoyed that show when it was on TV. But there's going to be a lot of cool channel episodes and builds coming up in the future on my channel. So if I haven't built something that you've suggested, don't get discouraged because this is something I'm going to be doing indefinitely and definitely going to need content going forward. This is one of the reasons why I'm starting to do Discord now because with Discord, I can get a much better accurate number when I do polls and votes on future builds. This is why it'll be such a good thing for you to get on Discord, um, because with you guys making suggestions to me on YouTube, I'm going to be taking these suggestions and compiling them, combination of what I'm getting from YouTube and then what I'm getting from people suggesting to me in Discord. And from those, I'm going to make polls to see what my next builds will be going forward. And I'm really looking forward to that because that's going to be a much more efficient way of taking my numbers down here. Um, but now, since we worked on our shuttle bay just for a little bit, we are going to be hopping back into the mall. It feels like we've been working on this thing forever, but I'm telling you, when this area is done, it's going to be worth it because it's going to be so unbelievably beautiful, and we're really knocking out three birds with one stone. Um, because we're building out not only the mall but the aquarium, and then also kind of like an arboretum. Now, this middle line right here, I want to talk about this a little bit. Between the top deck and the bottom deck, you can see I added a row right here of green concrete. And the reason I did that was originally I just had um, the bush going in front here, and it didn't look right to me. I think what we might end up actually doing is having this green block be 2 rows high and getting rid of this half slab row right here. But I think I actually ended up changing that back because I had a problem where when you're in this inside area of the ship here, and you're looking up, you're seeing green. But I added it because helped to fill it in just a little bit more than it did when it wasn't there. And if you don't know what I mean, try adding this with the green without that green concrete block here. And you'll get more of an idea of what I mean because you can kind of see through these bushes a little bit. And having that green block there definitely helps to fill it in just a little bit more than what it had, you know? And this will be really cool too because this is where I was talking about where it's going to start to feel a little bit more like an arbitorium because I was really conflicted on what I wanted to do exactly. I was thinking about maybe having maybe like an island or two or something like here in the water, but then I was like, like I've got such pretty lines here, it'd be a shame to get rid of that. And then I was just kind of thinking of um they don't really have too much of it now, but those of you that are kind of old like me, like I'm in my mid to late 30s, you probably remember how some malls used to be like in the late 80s, early 90s. They used to have a lot of live plants in them. And there was a mall here in Florida where up like on the balconies, as you're walking by, like right on the railing and below the railing, they had plants. And that's kind of where I got the idea to do this. And I'm actually really glad that I did because it's adding that more level of kind of like bringing this area to life a little bit. Because this area is really going to be for people that um, they either don't like going to a holodeck or they've had enough of the holodeck and they want to be in a real section of they want to interact with something that's real and that they don't feel like they're in space. That's pretty much the whole point of this area. So it kind of makes sense. Now you get an idea of what I mean, where like kind of makes sense to have like a mall, an aquarium, and kind of arbitorium wrapped together in one. Even though we've got the room to where I could have very well have built these areas separately, but I don't know why. It really just made sense to me to blend these three areas together. Now, with that being said, I might have a completely separate arbitorium that I might build because I'm going to have the room to do it. Um, but I still thought that it was necessary to have that green component in this section of the ship, especially because it had the aquarium. It just felt like I needed to have it. Because not only for, Starfleet that are coming through this area of the ship, you've got dolphins and other types of fish swimming through there. So you kind of want it to feel a little bit like Earth a little bit. That's why we did the blue ceiling and sections of the ceiling there to try to simulate that they're on Earth maybe. But this was something that I just kind of fell into. And And what I mean by that is I just kind of threw something down and tried it out. This is why I say that it's so imperative sometimes that if you're not sure what you want to do, try out a couple of different things, experiment a little bit. If you're worried about messing up your build, make multiple save files. And if it doesn't come out the way that you want, no big deal. Rather than spending all this time deleting it, just revert back to the save before you made the change. I do this stuff all the time. And it's truly an asset to me because anytime I want to experiment, following that process, I can really do whatever I want and I don't have to worry about it. Um, and I just, kind of had an idea that, this area of the ship, it needed a little bit more green to feel like it was alive for not only the aquatic animals, but for the humans living on board. And I'm actually so happy that I fell into this because and I wish that I could say that, like, yeah, like I intended to do this from the beginning. I didn't. I totally, I totally had no original intention of doing this. Um, but this is again, why it's important to take your time when you're doing these builds because When you take your time, that's when you come across some of the best ideas that you're going to get. I can't tell you how many times in the past where I've rushed through builds and then I've thought, after I was done with the build, like, oh man, like I should maybe have done it this way, and like only if I waited a little bit, I could have built it so much better than I did. That's why I take my time a lot of times with this stuff because usually when you're rushing through it, you're not really getting your best out of it. You're really not. I'm so excited to show this off because now we're starting to get into the area of where the mall looks like how it looks presently, minus having the foundations for the shops on this outer wall here, because that's something that we are going to be doing. But we'll be taking a break after that. I think we've only got to have like maybe one or two more episodes that we're going to be focusing on the mall before we take a break, and then we come back later on in the build, and then we're going to build our shops going along these outer windows here. And that will be really cool, and it'll help flesh out this area a little bit. Um, Only thing that we could maybe add is some green here on the inner walls, just like what we did on the outer side. I think that would be very appropriate. No, because what I ended up doing, I didn't find a specific picture. Oh, you can see here I'm trying a different type of bush because I wanted to see how it was going to look, but it wouldn't let me even snap it there. But what I ended up doing, like for this area of the ship too, I did go on Google and I just searched like malls with plants, and because I remembered from when like I was saying like when I was a kid, I'd go to like some of these malls here in Florida and they had like a lot of green in them, like kind of like what we're doing now. But I found like one or two pictures I did kind of loosely reference off of. This is where I say like Google is such an asset because you can get a little bit of that reference material that you need to kind of bring your ship to the next level, especially if you're not exactly sure how that area is going to look. And we're not even done with our ceiling yet. You can see there's still a gap in there, like as we go upward. Um, but we'll get that done. Like I said, there's a lot of area that we have um, to cover here, and it's taken a little bit longer than I anticipated to work on the mall because now that I'm looking back, it doesn't feel like I worked on the mall for that long when I originally built it. But I mean, obviously we have because we're going into like um, 8 or 9 or whatever, episode 8 or 9 or whatever it is, just on the mall, which is insane because I don't think I've ever had a single area of the ship that I've done so far for any build previously where it took that long to render it all out. But as we're going through this ship, I think it's definitely necessary because this thing is just absolutely massive. This is the other one of the things I'm talking about, that when this is all said and done, this is going to be one of the areas that's going to help to sell the scale of the ship. And not just this by itself, but as we go room to room, deck to deck, area to area, it's going to add up and it's going to help to give that more grandiose, over the top feel that we really didn't get to see that much in Next Generation because they really didn't, even though like they had more money to work with, they didn't have a huge budget to work with. That's why like any times other ships showed up in Next Generation, they were basically redresses from the Shatner movies because they didn't have enough money. You know, that's honestly one of the reasons why I've been enjoying Star Trek Lower Decks because they've really kind of feels like for the first time that they've been finally fleshing out next generation era ships, and I think that that's pretty cool. But they're kind of like they're at the point now that they're getting like tail end next generation, kind of like the area of like First Contact where the ships are getting like super advanced. I kind of wish that they would have stayed in like maybe like the earlier years in next generation. That would have been cool. But it is what it is. I'm just happy that they're fleshing out more of that era. But this section is it's coming out pretty good. I'm actually really happy with it. I love the ceiling right here in the top. This is what I mean, like with the blue that we had added in. It's supposed to kind of simulate a sky, even though we couldn't do it all the way through. And that was really because this gray right here is going directly into the shuttle bay. But what we could do, if we really wanted to, we could actually just add another layer of blue and have all this and all the ceiling in here blue. But I don't know. We'll mess with that. I'm honestly, that's something that I've been thinking about, but I'm not sure if I want to do it or not because I kind of like the line work that I have going along here in the ceiling. Um, but yeah, I think that's going to wrap us up today. We've got a little bit of work done. Pretty happy with the progress that we've made on this section of the ship. She's really uh, turning out to be quite a beautiful ship, interior wise as well as exterior. But stick with me through the course of this tutorial. We've got a lot of stuff to cover, and we show you a lot of cool things that you can do with your own Enterprise D. But that's definitely going to wrap us up today. I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in today's episode. And of course, be sure to tune into my new episodes dropping Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern. And if you haven't, be sure to join my Discord. I've got a Discord channel now, and I will have a join link in the description below. So what are you waiting for? Be sure to join that for all the latest updates regarding Minecraft and also my own YouTube channel and a whole bunch of other cool stuff coming along. And of course, if you haven't, be sure to like and subscribe on my YouTube channel as we approach 1,000 subscribers. We'll be building the 2016 Enterprise A from Star Trek Beyond, which I'm really looking forward to that. And what else? Lastly, if there's any questions you had regarding today's episode or any builds you want to see, just dropping by to say hey, be sure to drop a comment below either on YouTube or Discord. Definitely love from hearing everybody. But I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in today's episode, and I hope everybody has a happy and safe week. And I'll catch you on the next episode. And of course, what did you make in Minecraft today? Let me know in the comment section.